My name is Clyde Namul. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. The memorandum of agreement was entered into between OHA and the US DOT and Hawaii Department of Transportation for remediation to the H3 site. I think because the project, the H3 project, went on for so long, there was a lot of anger in the community about the impact that the freeway would have on both the Luluku community as well as the Halava community. So I think that was regrettable. Now, over those many, many years, the freeway was redesigned a number of times to try to mitigate problems with burial sites and et cetera. And to the credit of the state, that is a good thing because they avoided some of the confrontation. Of course, many of the people that opposed the project felt that building the freeway through the valley simply was the wrong thing to do. So I think setting up the HLID project to try to remediate some of those issues was a very good beginning and a first start. And it's just been a difficult road. I'm still angry, and I don't, I have not, and HLID and the H3 situation is just one example. Mm-hmm. There are numerous examples where Hawaiians feel victimized. And I think there are certain groups that have a more difficult time getting past that victimization thing. And I think that's regrettable because when you have that mindset that I'm a victim, it becomes more difficult for you to see solutions and to get past it. But again, we are victims. We have been treated unfairly. So the government wanted to heal the community. They wanted to mitigate what they knew were mistakes that had been made. Sometimes I think government needs to spend more time in the planning and executing process, and then you don't have so many of these bad feelings as a project moves forward. And there are numerous examples of that happening in our community where you've got the engineers and you've got the lawyers putting things together, and the community gets brought into late in the process. I think what has been gained is that the government at least understands that there needs to be mitigation. Regardless of whether it is late in the process or not, at least there is that acknowledgement that that there needs to be something done to mitigate what the construction has done to these two communities. So I think that's good. There isn't enough publicity about it. When people were protesting H3, then it was in the news. Now we're talking about mitigation, and there isn't enough public information to the community that here's the H3 that people were so opposed to for years and years and years. Here's our mitigation plan, and here's what's going to happen to try to make this right. And I think if you're really wanting to heal the feelings of the community needs to know what's going on. The problem is, though, when you're only dealing with the bureaucratic aspects of a project and not the cultural and the things that really touch your heart, then you're not going to make progress. And I think part of the problem I saw, for example, we got into this long debate about the area of potential effect. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the Luluku side, of course, the HDOT and USDOT folks said, well, the area of potential impact only was close to where the freeway actually comes through the valley. And the community felt that it was much more far-reaching than that, and that when you talk about mitigation, you're really talking about mitigating all of the damage that having this huge concrete structure come through a community will do. And and that's what I mean with when you look at just the bureaucracy and the rules and regulations that say, okay, 30 feet on both sides of the freeway. If you went through the pyramid and you built a highway through the pyramid, so you're only 30 feet on the left and 30 feet on the right? No, I think that it ignores the reality that what was there, the community that was there, the things that were sacred to the community has now been disrupted. And so the rigidness of the regulations, I think, is something that probably could have been argued. And because the project went on for so many years, by the time we picked it up, at least when I came on board, some of those decisions and determinations had already been made. You know, those are the kinds of things that legal actions really should have been based upon. You know, a lawsuit should have been filed early enough to say, wait, we don't agree that the area of potential effect only includes 30 feet on both sides of the freeway. So by the time we came on, it was like, well, had already been decided and the statute of limitation had already run. So I'm not criticizing people who preceded us. I'm sure they did the best that they could have done at the time. But it was frustrating for the community because, for example, the Omega station is not even in the area of potential effect. Yet, that's a significant piece. Political action is always something that needs a greater attention. People need to understand that, you know, whether we like it or not, what happens at the legislature, what happens in Congress, will have an effect on our lives here in Hawaii. And whether we like it or not, we need to become much more engaged. You know, decisions are being made. For example, this past legislative session, there was the formation of a commission that will affect the use of government land. It is a significant change in policy. It will allow the commission can bypass county regulations. They can bypass any state regulation for the purpose of developing land. Now, that's awful. Awful for various reasons. One, there's a whole safety issue when you ignore building regulations. You know, so you know, OHA was not as aggressive in opposing that as it could have been this past session. But where we are now is the community needs to really understand that this will have far-reaching impacts on the use of ceded lands even, because, you know, there's been a real move towards, okay, if we're not going to use the land for schools because communities have shifted, and we're going to close schools like Lili'uokalani Elementary School, most of those schools are built on ceded lands. And when you say, well, we're going to close it, we're going to use the land for something else, you never hear governments say, oh, okay, we're going to give it back, we're going to put it back in the inventory of land. No, we're going to use it for some other purpose, like building a tower or whatever. That will have an impact on Native Hawaiians. And so, you know, I think we need to become much more engaged. And when I say that, I think we at OHA are in a place where letting the community know, I think our reach has been just too narrow. We don't do enough to let the entire Hawaiian community know what's going on and issues that people need to stand up and pay attention to. I think HLID has the opportunity to really set a tone for how mitigation is handled, but it's dangerous to proceed in a vacuum. It's not so much, or it is not only correcting the problems that arose as a result of constructing the freeway. That's not all of it. It's really educating the community that, you know, if government is going to proceed on a project that is on shaky ground in terms of the community, then, you know, there will be consequences, there will be costs involved. And millions of dollars have been pumped into the project already, and millions more will be spent before the mitigation is completed. We're going to take care of what takes care of us. The land takes care of us, we will take care of the land. That's to me fundamental. And I can't see, you know, in an evolution of values, that would still be the foundation. How you choose to take care of the land might be very different. You know, you could be Kamehameha School and you're taking care of the land is building, you know, towers on it that generate money to help support the culture. And I'm not criticizing Kamehameha for doing that. That's how they have evolved, if you will. There are others who will say, no, you know, the culture is that we have to work on the land, we have to work in the lo'i. So which is better? Which is the correct value? I think they're both correct. And that's when we say we're resilient, that's why we're resilient, because we are able to survive.